In this video, I am going to share with you a step-by-step pattern for making this beautiful hanging flower pot. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. For this I am using 4-ply cotton yarn along with a crochet hook of size 3 mm. Now let us begin by making a magic ring with a beige color. And here we are making a pot base. So for first round, make 8 single crochet stitches into the center. So that's the third stitch. This one is the fourth one. 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now close the magic ring and let's start making the second row. For this, make single crochet increase on the top of the first stitch and then put a stitch marker into the first stitch to mark the beginning of the second row. Now continue to make single crochet increases in each and every stitch throughout the row. So as we have 8 stitches in the first row, we will make 8 increases in the second row, which means by the end of the second row you will have 16 single crochet stitches. Here I am making the last increase of the second row. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the third row. Remove the stitch marker, begin with 1 single crochet stitch and then put the stitch marker back, and this marks the beginning of the third row. Now into the next stitch, make 1 increase, that is 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. Now repeat this pattern throughout the row for a total of 8 times. So make 1 single stitch and then 1 increase, again 1 single stitch and 1 increase throughout the row. Here I am making the last set. So make 1 single stitch first and then in the next stitch make an increase, and this completes the third row with 24 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and then let's make row 4. So begin with 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the 4th row. Now into the next stitch make 1 more single stitch. So we have 2 single crochet stitches and then in the next stitch make an increase. Now repeat this pattern throughout the row for 8 times. So this is the second repetition. So 2 single crochet stitches and then an increase, and repeat this throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And this completes the 4th row with 32 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 5th row. For this, begin with 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back. We have to make 3 single crochet stitches. So first one is already done. Now make 2 more single crochet stitches. So we'll have a total of 3 single stitches. Now into the next stitch, make 1 increase. Now repeat this pattern throughout the row for 8 times. And by the end of the row, you will have 40 single crochet stitches. Here I am making the last increase. Now let's start making the 6th row. For this, remove the stitch marker. Make 1 single crochet stitch into the next stitch and then put the stitch marker back. This marks the beginning of the 6th row. Now continue to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. So as we have no increases and decreases in this row, the count will remain the same. We will have 40 single stitches by the end of the 6th row. Repeat the pattern from row 1 to row 6 with a brown color yarn to make a soil. So this one I have made with the same pattern in the same size. Now put this aside and let's continue to make the pot. The pattern will be the same for first row to 6th row for both the plant base, the pot and the soil as well. Now for row 7, begin with a slip stitch and then chain 1. Now into the same stitch, insert the needle into the back loop and then make 1 single stitch. Carefully insert the needle only into the back loop and then make a single stitch. Now put the stitch marker into the first stitch and this marks the beginning of the 7th row. Now throughout the row, continue the same pattern of inserting the needle only into the back loops and make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row, leaving the front loops. Now if you observe carefully, the front loops which we leave by making single crochet stitches only into the back loops, this will give a border kind of look for our project. Now making the last single crochet stitch for the 7th row. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 8th row. So from 8th row till the 16th row, we have to make only one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. So in each and every row we will have 40 single crochet stitches. Just continue to make one single stitch in each and every stitch until row 16. Now by the end of the 16th row, this is how the pot looks like. Now remove the stitch marker and finish your project. Make a slip stitch into the next stitch, chain 1 and then trim the excess thread by leaving a small tail end. Now using a tapestry needle, weave in this tail end into the pot as shown in the video. Just hide the tail end into 2 to 3 stitches and then leave the tail end into the pot for stuffing. You don't have to trim the excess thread. Once the pot base is ready, put this aside. Now let's start making the daisy flowers for the project. Begin with a yellow color yarn for the center. Begin with a magic ring and then make chain 1. Now let's start the first row. For this, make 10 single crochet stitches into the center. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Now close the magic ring and then make a slip stitch into the first stitch. Now change the color to white for the second row, where we will do the petals for the flower. Just grab the new yarn out of the old one and then pull the yellow thread from the back side, and this secures the new thread. Now for the petals, begin with chain 2 and now make one double crochet stitch into the first stitch. Again make one double crochet stitch into the next stitch. Here I am including the tail ends while working, so I don't have to worry about hiding them after completing the work. If you wish, you can leave them behind and hide all of them at the end of the project. Then make chain 2 and slip stitch into the same stitch, and this completes the first petal. Now slip stitch into the next stitch and repeat the pattern. So chain 2 and one double crochet stitch into the same stitch. Then one more double stitch into the next stitch. Chain 2 and slip stitch into the same stitch. This completes the second petal. Likewise, continue to make remaining 3 petals until the starting point, so you will have 5 petals in total. Here I am making the last petal, so chain 2, one double stitch into the same stitch, then one double stitch into the next stitch, chain 2 and slip stitch into the same stitch. And once all the 5 petals are done, make chain 1 and then trim the excess thread. Here I am just leaving a small tail end and hide these tail ends using a tapestry needle at the back side. And after inserting the tail ends into the project, just trim the excess threads. Now make 10 such flowers, 2 flowers for each string of leaves. If you wish to add more strings of leaves, you can make more flowers according to your wish. Now let's start making the leaves for this pot pattern. Begin with a slip knot and then make chain 7. That's 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Now skip the first chain from the hook. Let's start making the leaf pattern. Begin with one single stitch and then make one half double crochet stitch. Now into the next stitch we have a DC increase, that is 2 half double crochet into the same stitch. And into the next stitch we have one more double crochet stitch increase. So that's first double stitch and then one more double stitch into the same stitch. Now we have 2 more stitches remaining. Make 1 half double stitch into the next stitch and then make last single stitch into the last chain. So this completes first half of the leaf. Then for the second half, make chain 2. This gives the tip for the leaf, and then insert the needle into the first chain. Include the tail end while working and make 1 single crochet stitch. And repeat the same pattern on the first half of the leaf on the second side. So here we have the half double stitch and then a double crochet increase. After that we have one more double crochet stitch increase into the next stitch. Next we have a half double crochet stitch and into the last chain make a single stitch. Throughout the row I have included the tail end. Now into the top of the first single stitch make a slip stitch, and this is the leaf pattern, and this pattern is going to be repeated for every leaf. Trim the excess thread of the tail end on the back side. Now make chain 8. You can customize this length of the gap between the leaves. Here the chain 8 is the count I've taken. If you wish to have more spaces, increase the chain count. If less, decrease the chain. After that, for the next leaf, make chain 7. Now skip the first chain from the hook and make 6 single crochet stitches across the chain. So this gives the base of the leaf from the second part. In this way we don't have to make multiple leaves and then attaching to individually. You can just crochet in one go. And now across this foundation single stitch chain we are going to make a leaf. So begin with the leaf pattern here. So 1 single crochet stitch into the chain, then in the next chain half double stitch. After that we have a double crochet increase, and into the next stitch we may have one more double crochet increase. Then make 1 half double stitch, and into the last chain make 1 single stitch. Now for the tip of the leaf make chain 2. Now turn your work across the single stitch side and continue the leaf pattern. So begin with 1 single stitch and then a half double stitch. Next we have a DC increase and one more DC increase in the next stitch, and then we have a half double stitch, and in the last stitch make 1 single stitch. After this make 1 slip stitch on the top of the first single stitch on the leaf pattern. Now we are going to repeat this pattern of making chain 8 and then extra chain 7 for the leaf, and likewise continue until how much length of the leaf string you wanted. Here I have made the string with 5 leaves, and once all the 5 leaves are done I'm making chain 10. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So once all the stitches are done, trim the excess thread and make a final knot. And I have made 5 such strings. If you want, you can add more number of strings for your project. So it's completely individual choice to customize. Once all the flower stems are done, let's assemble the leaves with the flowers. You can sew them using a tapestry needle or simply put a glue and stick them together. Either ways it's fine. Now once all the 5 strings of leaves with flowers are ready, let's attach them to the soil and the flower pot. Insert all the leaf strings into the magic ring center of the soil as shown in the video, and secure them by making a knot at the center on back side of the work. In this way, you can make sure that all the strings are secured and attached nicely. And if you wish, you can put a glue to make it extra strong. Now let's add stuffing into the pot. So for this project, you don't have to put too much of stuffing in there because it will ruin the shape of the project. Just put good amount of fiberfill such that the soil goes inside the pot and gives a flat look. It shouldn't be embossed on the top. Now using the tapestry needle and the tail end of the soil, attach the soil to the flower pot as shown in the video. For this I am using the back loop of the soil on the row 6 and the back loop on the flower pot which is left at the row 15th of the flower pot. So attaching it inside as shown in the video, just observe carefully the back loop of the soil and the back loop of the single crochet stitch on the 15th row of flower pot. Attach it one stitch for each and every join and likewise continue throughout the project. So once the soil is attached completely, make a knot and then hide the tail end into the stuffing and then trim the excess thread. Now let's fix the position of the strings. Adjust them in such a way that the flower pot will have a balanced distribution on all the sides, or anyways or whichever arrangement you like for your flower pot. Here I have just taken a random placement and then I am attaching it using a glue. Leave it to dry and your flower pot with string of leaves and flowers is now ready. Put this aside and let's start making the hanging threads for this pot. For this I am using the same color which I have used for the base of the flower pot, and then chain it up until you have the required length. Here I have made up to chain 80. Make 2 such pieces to attach it on the crisscross over the flower pot. Here I am using a tapestry needle to attach these threads to the flower pot. Just make a knot on either side of the flower pot and then insert the tail end into the stuffing and then trim the excess thread. And you have to repeat this with the other side of the string on the opposite side of the flower pot as well. And now attach the other thread in the same way in an opposite direction of the first thread. And that's it. Your cute hanging flower pot is now ready. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try. The written pattern was given in the description below. Do check it out. Also let me know in the comments where you're going to use this flower pot to decorate, whether it's your home or a patio, or you can even put it in your car on the rear view mirror, right? See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.